Welcome to the Meteor Mentor session number 2. If you're looking for session number 1, I don't think it got posted, so try to keep it pedantic though. So far, it's just myself and then Barry. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So we're supposed to have some more people, but I thought it'd be worth at least just chatting and working through any questions you might have, Barry. I guess one-on-one.
Yeah, definitely. The main big thing I'm trying to get my head wrapped around is the whole BBD TDD workflow. I have it down to where I can easily write my scenarios, my use cases. I can even write my unit test. But where I get bogged down in is figuring out what testing software I'm using with Meteor and how to get started implementing it. Like, I look at my empty project. I'm like, where do I start? I've read, for example, the Meteor testing book that you and Matt were working on. Well, obviously it needs to be updated. So just wondering if you could expound where I should start from there.
Sure. So I think maybe you're talking about Sam's book.
Yeah, Sam's.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I bowed out of the book that I was writing, but sorry, I haven't had any food today. But yeah, for me, so it sounds like you've written a couple English language scenarios and you've written maybe what you think would be a unit test. Is that what I heard, right?
That is correct.
And so you have an application that you've created already, or is it just brand new, like you haven't done anything yet?
I built it up, and then each time I start over, I'm like, I want to build this right with, I test-driven development, but I get totally stuck.
Okay, so the first thing I would say is like, probably similar to along the lines of like what I said in the but does Meteor scale post. Like, I think testing is good. It's a good thing to learn, but 100% test coverage is not a goal that you should have. And even, I would go light with the testing until you have an idea of, I don't know why you're building this app, but if you're going to build this app because you want people to pay you money, then I would say, go light on the testing until you have a better idea of why they're going to pay you that money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's, when you're getting started, that's a bit of a gray area. But let's say instead you're just doing an open source project and you really want people to be able to contribute. I think testing is super important because if you write a test for code, you're basically declaring the intention for what you want that code to do. And once that intention is declared in a way that's runnable, then it becomes easy for you to see, when someone sends you a pull request or something, did they send it with a test? If they didn't, you should tell them to write a test so that they can declare the intentions for the code they have. And then also you want to make sure that the CI server's running and giving you test feedback to say, oh, hey, their pull request kind of broke what you were expecting to happen. And so with that in mind, I think if you have some scenarios, I would personally recommend, I mean, that's kind of the cucumber way. I would recommend starting with Chimp and getting your scenarios up and running. And that sometimes that can be difficult, but I think that's, especially for an early product, that's really the best thing you can do for testing. I think unit tests are great for when you're diving into something hard. Like, let's say you're dealing with changing time zones or something, or trying to change the time to fit in the user's time zone. Like, that's maybe something you'd write a unit test for, or you're doing some kind of math or something, you want that to be accurate. It basically, if there's multiple like logic branches, then a unit test is usually pretty good. I think we lost him. So if you're watching online and you were in the mentor or the the Meteor Mentors chat room. I posted the Hangout link too. You're welcome to join. Happy to have more people in here, even if you're not my mentor group. Let's see what happened. Hey, there we go.
Hey, sorry about that. I had a power blip.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you can see your lights are off behind you.
I live in the country, so.
So where did it drop out for you? What was I?
Well, we were just talking about, I guess, the purpose of testing if you are going to give back to the community in a package.
Oh yeah. So if it's open source, I think it's worth probably writing those tests up front. And my recommendation personally would be to use Chimp, and to use Mocha and Cucumber with Chimp. I think that's going to be the most full featured offering you can look at right now. And I have a feeling the testing book's going to be updated to kind of follow those practices. And there's a great see if I can find it. There's a great link. Solvio. Sam's done a great job. Got like a repo. Here we go. Automated testing best practices. Let me see if I can share my screen.
Okay, yeah, I have seen that one and read it.
Yeah, so I would recommend giving this a look. You know, they're pouring a lot of time and resources into it.
Yeah.
Sorry, you puppy. And they're really trying to keep all their knowledge in this area. So, you know, they're looking at how best to run a CI server and that kind of thing. So, I mean, they're figuring it out. I think, you know, if you look at Velocity and what it was and kind of the confusion with it being handed back and kind of being dropped by Meteor, that really just came down to they were trying to mod Meteor Core, and Meteor Core wasn't accepting their pull request back from May. And so they were trying to port it forward for every new version, but I think it was just becoming too time consuming. And so they decided to just pull away from that and instead write Chimp and build something that is a little easier to use. And it doesn't have to mod Meteor in any way.
Cool. Awesome.
So I would say start with those scenarios and try to get those running. You may have a little bit of trouble getting them working at first, but I think it's a worthy goal to work through, because as soon as you get one working, you'll be able to write a couple more. And I think those are, you know, when I've taught a class a couple times on testing, and I think the key thing is, you know, what I call the golden path or the happy path. Test that stuff first. And if you think about like, oh, what exactly does that mean? It means like, we actually had a scenario at a business that I was working in where they came in and they said, you know, we released some software and it broke some stuff, and our CEO was giving a demo and pitching for money, and like he couldn't show off the product. And so like the happy path or the golden path would be anything that's in that demo that the CEO is going to give, right? That stuff should be tested and you should know it works before you release. So.
Okay. Awesome.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So I'll just keep at it. I'm also interested on your take on some of the new stuff going on. Like, have you taken a look at Mantra, and do you have any feedback on, you know, any problems you see with Mantra, or is it generally
I've looked a little bit at Mantra, and you know, we talked about it a little bit yesterday on the podcast too. And my thoughts are, you know, I think Mantra is super interesting, and I think that really, if you look at it, some of it is they're writing little libraries that that makes sense that they need in order to build their application. And then some of it is really just their take on best practices, right? So it's kind of like it's a few libraries that are different, and then it's also like its own Meteor guide that they're building essentially. And super interesting to me. I think the reason that we're seeing it happen is because Meteor itself, like the core team, isn't very accepting of pull requests, and that kind of leads the whole like, is Meteor really open source that discussion, which has been quite active on the forum as well. So I think it's totally fine. You know, if you want to take a look at Mantra,
Yeah.
I think, you know, to me, as I said on the podcast, like, hey, goofy dogs. They, you know, the Mantra team is building a real application that they're, you know, staking a business on. Whereas up until maybe a couple months ago, Meteor itself, MDG, wasn't really building any kind of software with Meteor, right? So they were building Meteor to build Meteor. Whereas Kadira is building Mantra because they're trying to extract their best practices out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I think is a worthy goal. And it's, if nothing else, it's worth looking at to just, I think it's another way that you can kind of understand what's going on in 1.3. I think they have more documentation for Meteor 1.3 than Meteor itself has right now.
Yes,
so
I would agree with that.
You really have to dig in to a lot of forum threads and GitHub issues to kind of figure out what's going on in 1.3, which I've been doing, and it's not terrible, but could be easier if there were better docs, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just keeping on the front edge of everything, have you used GraphQL? Have you explored around with that and its potential?
No, I really haven't. I've kind of, you know, I try to explore things when it makes sense for like the teaching part of my business.
Right.
And I think GraphQL is interesting, and I'm excited for reactive GraphQL, but I don't see any reason for me to necessarily dive deep into it right now. I think if you want to dive into GraphQL right now, there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, you're probably going to be ending up down the path of like Relay and Redux, and then like you've got this whole stack that isn't necessarily Meteor. And for me, like for now, I at least want to stay kind of focused in Meteor. And you know, when I look at my business, the things that are much more interesting to me are building mobile apps with Meteor. And so, you know, my next focus is going to be Cordova with 1.3 and getting a class out for that. And then maybe even looking at React Native either by itself, or if there's, you know, we're hearing that maybe 1.4 will have some React Native integration to it. So that could be interesting as well.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So besides working on Meteor and mobile, is there anything else like really exciting in Meteor that you're playing around with, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just 1.3 in general. Like I've forced myself to utilize 1.3 for my upcoming client project, and like I said, it's maybe a little painful, but at the same time, I want to know how to build a 1.3 app. I want to know what it's going to take, and how I can rely on node modules and that kind of thing. So like that tight NPM integration looks super interesting to me. You know, now you can just go in there and like the project has React. I think the only thing that I've installed off Atmosphere so far has been Flow Router. So it's got React, it's got Flow Router. I'm using the React mounter that I think Mantra, it was written for Mantra. Excuse me. I'm using the, I haven't used React Composer yet, but that looks potentially interesting as well. You know, being able to compose those higher order containers, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I was actually trying to figure out what things from Atmosphere we still need, or what we can move on to NPM for. Like, I'm still using Meteor Hacks SSR for the, and besides that and what you listed, I think everything else has been NPM packages I've been playing with integrating. So
yeah, totally. And if you look at like this is a sore spot as well, but like there's no reason for Foundation or Bootstrap or any of that stuff to exist in Atmosphere, right? Like they're publishing NPM packages, and there really shouldn't be any Meteor specific code in there. So we should be able to pull those in. The only problem is the sore spot is coming from the fact that there's no way for you to get past less or SAS files out of a node module right now. And so I'm kind of hoping, there's already an open issue about it. Benjamin originally said he didn't think it was necessary for 1.3. I'm kind of hoping we can get enough people kind of piling into that issue and get that fixed, because I think it would be amazing to not have to have all those kinds of packages in Atmosphere. I want to keep that focused, So for me, like the thing that I'm trying to figure out now is like I want to build a higher order component that will handle the login stuff for you, and you can wrap it around any other kind of component that you want that requires a login. And if they're not logged in, it'll show them the login page,
Right, absolutely.
To me, that should live probably in Atmosphere because it's a React, a Meteor specific React package.
Just to jump into user interface and components, like I actually see a lot of people doing inline CSS with their components now. For me, from my background, I'm like, what? I thought we got away from that. Well, what's your take on inline CSS or components? In one sense, it makes sense, but
yeah, I don't know. I'm probably not the best guy to ask on that. I generally work with a designer, so I leave those kinds of considerations up to someone else. So I think the downside is that if you inline the CSS, then it becomes hard to kind of cache that and have that kind of separation of concern. And so if you use a tool like YSlow or Google PageSpeed, like you can look at that stuff and say, well, when we extract out the CSS into its own file, that's like a known thing that we can then compress down, right? Minify, get it as small as we can. We can gzip it, and we can deliver that to the client. And it can be from anywhere, right? It doesn't have to come from the web server. It can be cached and you use CDN or something like that. And so there's a lot of benefit there. And I think using the inline styles, you lose a little bit of that. I also think the other thing that is maybe a downside is the fact that it's hard to override inline styles, right? The inheritance is such that inline style will always take precedence over whatever you have set. So there could be some funkiness there, but I think if you're willing to accept those downsides, then and you still want to do it, and you have a compelling reason, then I would say it's okay in my mind.
Okay. Something I've been thinking about too and not clear on is sort of like the whole code splitting imports. Like if you put your modules in an import folder, does that mean they don't load until they're called? Or is everything still loaded at the beginning?
I'm unsure how that's going to shake out with 1.3. I think it's still kind of happening. So code splitting is maybe a little bit different, and I'm not sure we're even going to get that in 1.3. But it's the idea, like if you look at Crater, you have kind of the front end, right? And someone comes along and loads the front page, and they just want to read some news. But what we're actually delivering in there is all the JavaScript to make all the entire website work. And a lot of those people don't care about the admin code or any of that kind of stuff. And so the idea of code splitting is like, I should be able to say, only load this code when you load this page, and only load that code when they load that page, right? And so I can separate those out. And instead of having a 2 megabyte monolithic kind of minified gzip, tarball, whatever of code. Instead, we can have like 100K over here for loading the news page, and then maybe, you know, the rest of it is kind of split up on the pages that will be loaded as you load them. And so that's kind of the idea behind code splitting. And I think it'll be good when we get it, but my thoughts are we may have to integrate with the router to do that. You know, there's got to be some point where we're picking up the split and realizing like we need to deliver this file. So,
yeah.
I mean, I could see it happening with the module system. It's possible, but I haven't seen any kind of talk about it in regards to 1.3.
Okay. Okay, what I'm curious about is what's your deployment setup for all the different sites you run? Like, is it all the same thing, or have you use a bunch of different services? Like, what's Crater.io running on?
Right now it's on DigitalOcean, and I'll say, you know, the only reason, one, I wanted to try out Galaxy. They didn't give me an invite fast enough, and then even when they did, they said, you know, we're gonna limit it to 5 containers, and that just wasn't compelling enough for me to move. So I really haven't tested Galaxy out yet. I think Modulus is great. It's a little pricier than Galaxy, but it can be a good option as well. The biggest thing is really the database and making sure you have oplog enabled. And so I would look at Compose or MongoLab, and no matter what you do, like if you're at Galaxy or, you know, Modulus offers you a database, but they'll tell you, like, if you ask them honestly what they think of their database offering, like they'll tell you it's pretty bad. So I would definitely avoid using the Mongo support that Modulus offers. And so for me, the key to any hosting platform is making sure that you have routing between multiple databases,
Right.
or not multiple app servers that supports sticky session. And so if you think about it, when you connect, let's say you connect to Crater, right?
Yep.
You're going to pull in a bunch of information about the posts that you want to see, and you're also going to pull in your notifications. And so that's anything that's happened on the site since you were away. And those notifications are specific to your user. And so if we're now tracking that in the server, right? And let's say I have 2 servers, A and B. When you connect to server A and you get all that information, server A knows that it's tracking all that, and it's kind of got it stored in memory. So if for some reason you get dropped and you connect to server B, it's going to have to pull all that information again. And so that's
Right.
what, when it comes to like sticky session support, you want to make sure that you turn on something. You know, with HA proxy, you can set a little cookie, and it'll send you back to that same server again. With Nginx, which is what I'm using for Crater, I'm using IP hash. So I look at your IP and then run an algorithm and then send you to server A or server B, right? And so you're always, like, that algorithm's always going to come out to the same thing and try to send you to server A.
Okay.
And so we'll make sure that you always connect back. And so, you know, we already have that data. We don't want to put additional load on the server. So, you know, if you drop your connection and connect back to server A, you know, you'll have everything there, and it's going to be a lot lighter. So that's kind of the key to hosting. And most of them, you know, Heroku, Modulus, Galaxy, they all support that. And you can configure HA proxy or Nginx to kind of do the same thing if you're going to build your own.
Okay, yeah. No, I've been using Nginx. I was wondering, what are you using to route between your different apps?
And Nginx, I've got to write the article, but I did a custom compile and put in the upstream health check module. And basically, if you look at HA proxy, so the way it works is, like, you'll connect, and if the server's down, it'll mark it as down and stop routing stuff there. That's how Nginx works. HA proxy differs in that it can actually go check the server, and if it's down, it'll pull it out before it even sends people there. So if it's checking every, you know, second, and the server goes down, chances are people aren't going to see like a 501 or 502 error, right?
Okay,
And
right.
instead, Nginx will sit there and wait until it gets that 502 error, and then it'll pass that back to the client, and then it'll mark that, bring it out of the pool, and then it'll try again in a little bit to send it. And so that's not ideal. So that upstream health check will run an out-of-band health check and then mark available servers either available or pull them out of the pool and stop sending traffic there. So
Cool. Thank you. Hey, welcome, Tom. Jump in.
yeah, hey.
Or I guess he's not there anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we lost him.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
There we go.
Hello, I'm back again.
Hey,
Yep.
Thomas. Welcome.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Hi. Good to be here.
Good timing. I was just running out of questions, so you can jump in now. Or not.
On this because as I said, I didn't have my kid today, and he slept early, so I could jump in.
Nice.
But I guess so. Last time we discussed a little bit of the async, and one of the basic questions that I had there: how would you add
Is he cutting out for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe you can type your question, Tom. We're losing you quite a bit there.
Is there a way he can turn just video off and just do audio?
It's possible. Yeah, I can't do it. He'd have to do it on his end.
Right.
Let's ping him on Slack, maybe. It's like I'm waiting in anticipation for the question.
Yeah. Me too.
I've got this burning question, and it's lost you. Oh, come on! I've got this funny script that checks every 10 minutes and shuts down Slack if I'm not actively using it, so I don't spend too much time in Slack.
Yeah.
Like I literally just started Slack, and it was in the background, and it closed it down.
Okay. Well, I'll tell him.
Yeah.
Sorry, am I back?
There you are.
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a really bad connection. I'm sorry for that.
That's all right.
Don't want people to think Germany is has no good internet, but anyway. So I started asking about NPM libraries that don't have like the error callback as a last argument, and how to properly wrap those, because you can't use Meteor wrap async.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, how would you approach that?
Honestly, I don't know. I haven't really had to do that yet. So most of the libraries I've had to depend on do kind of have that error callback so you can properly wrap it. What kind of library are you talking about? Like, is it just for like querying an API, or is it something else?
It was I think I stumbled upon it when I tried to integrate Cloudinary. Do you know that?
Yeah, I've heard of Cloudinary before.
You can sync your pictures with Amazon, so AWS, and you can basically query for images, and in the URL you specify how, like crop or like thumbnail or stuff like that. So you don't always pull like the original image size, and they process the image on the server and then just send the image that you requested, basically.
Okay.
So it's a cool service, and I think in the end they return a promise. So from this upload thing, they return a promise, and then you can deal with that. But that's
well, then I would say that I'm pretty sure that the promise library that's in 1.2 is set up to work properly with fibers. So you may be able to just, I think you can call like promise.await, and then it should do the proper thing. I haven't messed with it a whole lot myself, but.
What do you usually do? You just use fibers or futures directly?
Yeah, you can. I mean, that's totally valid. And like early on, I definitely did a lot of that stuff. And so I've got some code somewhere that talks about like, or it basically it'll fire off a call, right? And then you just require your futures. I can find some code I can share in the Slack room later, but basically you just tell it to wait and to return something, and then it'll sit there and wait until that future returns, and then continue on with your code. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Like conceptually, I read a bit about this. I mean, I looked at futures, I looked at promises, and I looked at this ECMAScript 7 async await pattern that they will introduce, which seems to me like the perfect thing.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what Fibers is doing for you now, or what futures will do for you if you use them, which is built into Fibers. I'm trying to see if I've got the code on this machine. Private. It's not on here. Okay. It's on my other machine. I'll have to grab it off, but it's really not super hard to get a future set up if that's what you, if that's the direction you decide you want to go. But I'm pretty sure, like, yeah. So there is a Meteor Promise package, which is a polyfill, and it gives you that promise await right now, and so you could use that now. Let me get this link for you.
Yeah, I have stumbled upon this promise package because it's one of the first one that comes up if you search on it for the atmosphere. But there's really very little documentation on how to actually use it.
Yeah.
So that's a shame.
Yeah. Yeah, that is kind of a bummer. So I would imagine.
Is it? Do you know if that is strictly the async await pattern that will be available later in ES7? Because then I could just look up the documentation on that part.
I think it's a polyfill, and it tries to mimic what they're gonna have in 7. So I just pasted in. There's a talk that's listed in the README. It kind of takes you through the reasoning for it.
Yeah, I looked at it.
I'm sure it's better like having his words with it as well, but
yeah.
Fiber. Okay, he's talking about fibers. I'm trying to see if he shows off using the library or not.
Well, at some point there's a bit of code. If I remember correctly, I went through them, the slides. And there's a bit of code.
Okay. Yeah, he talks about await.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that. Let's try that. Pure promises. I guess I should share my screen. That's probably pretty boring just looking at my face. All right. Can you guys see my screen okay?
I can see your screen okay.
Okay. Yeah, so here's the promise.
So that really looks like the async await pattern that's going to be available later.
Right. Then return. Yeah, okay. See, I don't think that's quite what's implemented yet either.
Nah, it really looks like a talk why this should be implemented. Everything makes sense. Like I think the talk's also called something like that.
Huh. I don't know. Yeah, this could be an interesting experiment, honestly, to just give this a try and see.
Yeah.
I've actually got a use case. I could try to replace some code and could be some interesting learning here. If nothing else, a chance to give back with some docs too. Could still be valuable.
To the package.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, I read this one time, and now that I'm like reading it a little bit deeper, it's starting to make a little more sense. Okay,
Good.
so the other thing we can do.
I'm trying to look through the tests. Usually,
Yeah.
you can learn a bit about how to use them when you look at the tests I found.
Yeah. You can also just look at. So he sets up a Meteor Promise. It looks like he's overriding then.
ES6 promise. And you're looking at the repo.
Yeah.
Yeah. You promise prototype then.
There's your wrap callback. Here it is. Oh, wait. Yeah, it looks like it's totally, I think it should work just like he's saying in there, right? You just say await and then you give it a promise.
And you call the function async function, and in there okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. Also, I think we
It
need to
looks
do
like,
some experiments.
yeah, he even sets it up here so it's even available on the promise. So you can even just call it on the promise dot await. And then it'll come back and resolve the call and give you something back. Does that make sense?
Well, if I have a promise, then I can call await on the function, and this can have a return value, and
Yep.
this will be only available when the promise is resolved.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So this will, wow. This will actually make it a lot cleaner so you don't have to mess with futures at all.
Yeah.
That's essentially how a future works. So.
I didn't try it yet, but
Yeah.
yeah.